I'm Tahir. So I will be following up on this tutorial with introduction to Twitter data collection and processing. So the first thing I'll talk about is accessing the Twitter APIs. So what are APIs? So basically, they are a set of protocols that govern interactions between sites and users. So they provide the function to exchange information between your website. So it's another way, for example, when you go to a website, you can, on your web browser, you can get information from the web browser. But API provide another form of interaction with this website whereby you can send in request and you can get response in form of data. So Twitter provide a number of APIs to do this. There is the standard API, there's the premium API, there's the enterprise API. But today I'll be talking about the standard API, which is freely available to use by everybody. Now, as part of the standard API, the functions provided in the standard API are filtering real-time tweets. So basically, it allows you to filter tweets that are being sent by Twitter users based on, it could be based on a keyword. For example, you could filter the tweets by keywords such as global warming, climate change, or anything that you're really interested in. And another way that you can filter tweets is by location. So Twitter allows you to filter tweets based on the locations. And these locations are based on either the Twitter location the Twitter user self-reported location, or when you're sending in tweets, if the user has specified the location of the tweets, this will be used. But in most cases, a lot of times, Twitter users do not share their info and location. So you might not be able to get a lot of tweets using the location. And you can combine both of the keywords and the location filter. However, this is an OR operation. So basically, it's either it fetches based on the keyword or it's going to fetch based on the location. And this filtering, you only get access to 1% of all public tweets. So you don't get access to all of the tweets. It's just a random selection of tweets, but it's a lot of tweets have been sent per second. So depending on your keywords, it still provides a very good amount of data to collect for research. Another function provided by the API is you're able to search tweets, historical tweets. So you can search historical tweets for up to about 7 days for free. So using the keywords, you could search, maybe if you want to go back in time, you could search for tweets that have mentioned these keywords. If you want to go further than 7 days, you would have to pay for a premium subscription to be able to access the entire tweets collection. So it's possible to be able to access this if you have paid for the appropriate subscription. Now, in order to access the Twitter API, firstly, you must have a Twitter account. If you don't have one, you would have to sign up. And after that, you would have to apply for a Twitter developer account. So here is the link to apply for the access. When you're applying for access, you would be asked a variety of questions about why you need it and what purpose you will be using it for. From my experience, I would advise that you use your university account to apply for this. It's usually faster if it's for educational purposes. In my own case, it just took about 3 days. Unlike when I applied with my personal email, it took about a month and it still got rejected. So if this is going to be for research, I would recommend that you probably use your university email to apply for access. Now, after you've been granted access to the Twitter developer account, in order to be able to start collecting this data, you need API keys. In order to generate the API keys, you need to create an app in your developer account. When you're creating an app, you need to provide the unique name of your app. You need to provide a website name of the app. In most cases, I just put my GitHub repository, link to my GitHub repository. I would also expect that you might be fine to put your maybe research website or your personal websites or things like that. And also you need to provide an application description. So basically why you are, what you're going to be using this application for. An example of a description could be you're using this app to collect tweets related to climate change and things like that. And another thing is that you also to give a proper explanation why the app is required. And this is particularly seen by the Twitter workers. So you need to be very concise and make sure you provide very good explanation. Although when you create the app, you don't need to get approval from the Twitter users, but to be on the safer side, it might be better to provide very good explanation in case there's a random check and it doesn't get rejected. After you've been able to create the app, then you can generate the keys. So you have basically about 4 keys that you generate: the API key, the API secret key, the access token, and access token secrets. Once you have this API credentials, you would be able to start interacting or using the Twitter API. Now, we've been talking about the Python. So a very popular Python Twitter package or library, if you want to call it, is TweetPy. It provides access to the Twitter API using the Python programming language. And this is very extensive, and there's a very good and simple documentation. So in order to install this, you use, when you want to install packages in Python, we usually use pip install tip and the name of the package. So here, this is installing the TweetPy package. Just like my colleague was talking about modules or libraries. So here's an example of installing this package to be able to use it in your program. And in your source code, you need to import this, saying import TweetPy. And also we are importing the JSON library because the Twitter API returns results in the JSON. So here in my code, here's an example of a code on setting up the API access. So here you would have your consumer key secret, consumer secrets, access token, and the access token secret. After you do that, automatically from the TweetPy package, you pass these keys you pass these credentials, and it is going to do the authentication. This is very important. So here is just authenticating the API credentials to show that you have access to collect Twitter data. After the authentication, the next thing is you create a stream class where you start the actual collecting of the data. So in the TweetPy library, what we do is that we inherit the stream listener class, basically. So we create our own class by inheriting the stream listener class. And the stream listener class from the TweetPy library provides 2 functions. So it's several number of functions actually, but here we're just going to be talking about 2 functions. The first one is the onStatus function. So basically the onStatus function means that when you're streaming Twitter data, what happens when it returns a tweet. So in the case whereby we are able to successfully collect data, we want to write this JSON response, or the response from the API call. We want to store it in a JSON folder, or JSON file rather. So here is the function to do that. So onStatus, on basically successfully making a call, then the data is going to be written to our JSON file, which is named data.json. So it keeps writing to it, it keeps appending to the list as it fetches more tweets. And another function that I'm showing in this class is the onError function. Basically, in case when you're making a request and there's an error, we want to be able to maybe debug or explain what the error might be. So it returns some status code. So we just here is an example of a function to print out the status code. So this might give you more information about what has gone wrong with your streaming. Now, in order to start streaming, you need to create an instance of the class. So here I am creating an instance of my class here, and I am calling the function stream. And when you call the function stream from TweetPy, you provide the authentication, which is the one that we did in the previous class, in the previous slide rather, this one. So you provide this as the authentication. and you now provide the stream listener, which is the class, the instance of the class I just created here. So once you do this, now you can now start filtering the tweets based on any keywords. So here we're going to be tracking the keywords climate change and global warming. By doing this, any tweet that matches climate change or global warming would be collected, and it is an exact match. So it doesn't anything similar, it has to be an exact match. So here, in the case of climate change, it will match any word that has climate change in it, exactly as this is. If it was global warming, it will match any of this. Also, if you can also add the location here as well after, and you specify the location. And in using the location, you have to specify the coordinates. So Twitter has its own way of specifying these coordinates. In order to get the full API reference, I provided a link here. So you can go to the official Twitter API reference, where you will see all the possible filter queries that you could use. Now, once you start collecting, it starts writing to our JSON file. So here is an example of the JSON outputs when you collect or when you stream the data. So here's the field here is the created ad. So basically it's the time the tweet was sent. And also another important field is the ID. So this is the ID of the tweet. When sharing Twitter data, the policy is that you're not allowed to share full information about a tweet. So you can only share the ID. So once you have this ID, you're able to, people that are interested in collecting this data and they have access to the API are able to download these tweets just using the ID. So the ID is quite important. So in case you've worked on a research and you would like to share your data publicly, you are only allowed to share the tweet IDs. So here is the text of the tweets. Here is somebody talking about making climate change. You can see here in this text, we have climate change. That's why it was collected. There are also other information, the user that sends the tweet, the name of the user, what kind of devices, if they have provided, maybe if they have uploaded a media content, there's a link to so there's a ton of information provided in the tweets objects. And here to get the full Twitter dictionary details, here is a link. So it provides all the fields that are returned by a tweets object. Now, after we've collected this data, in order to make good use of this data, it's important that we do some bit of pre-processing. So one of the things that Python packages provide is that it provides a lot of packages to process data, basically. So here in the first one, we're interested in, so for example, we've collected the tweets, so it has a number of fields. We might not be interested in some other fields. We might only be interested in some relevance field from the tweet object. As example, maybe you might be interested in tweet ID, the user, the text, and things like this. So here is a function to filter a tweet. So basically from the JSON objects, I am going to be filtering just the ID, and that's what I'll be using to process my data, Another thing to do is maybe, for example, if you have your text, you want to remove the user mentions for the text. So in Python, there is a very good package called the regular expression package. So here is importing the regular expression package here. So it allows you, based on some regular expressions, it allows you to extract a part of a text and things like this. So here is the function to process my tweet text. So I want to remove HTML links in my tweets. I want to remove all user mentions and things like this. So here I have provided a pattern to match. So any pattern, or in my text, any text that matches this pattern would be removed from my text. So here is an example of the function that I defined to do this. So here I am removing all HTML links, mentions. I'm also removing some other characters that are not going to be useful for me, and I'm also removing any extra spaces, and also I'm changing all the text to lowercase. So all this, most of these functions are built in Python. You just have to call them, or they might be available in other external libraries. So in terms of special characters, you might just, because when people are sending tweets, they use a lot of emoticons and things like this. So you might want to remove some of this before you start working on your data. So here you're able to remove it using the regular expression package in Python. So another pre-processing step that is important is removing stopwords. So stopwords are basically commonly used words that do not provide any additional information about your text. Example is the there, these, and things like this. It could be any kind of word depending on the context of your research, but by default, and these are just the very popular ones there. So there is another Python package that helps you to undo this kind of things. So the name of the package is the NLTK package. It's a very extensive natural language processing package that is available in Python. So in order to install this same way, just use pip install NLTK and you import this on your source code. Now, another thing is tokenization. So what is tokenization? You're separating a piece of text into smaller units. So in order to be able to filter through the list of words in your tweets, you want to tokenize them. So tokenize them breaks them into a small, it breaks a text into smaller units like words. So if you have a text, it breaks it into words. So in that case, you can compare the words with your stopwords. So from the NLTK library, it provides a list of default stopwords, and you can download that. So here is the lines of code explaining how to do that. So here I'm downloading the stopwords and I'm downloading the English stopwords. There are other languages also available provided by the NLTK. You would have to check the library information to see the one that is provided by NLTK. Apart from this, you can also add your own stopword list. So after downloading the stopword list, in case you want to remove other words, you can also append to this list. So the result of this is a list. My colleague was talking about a list earlier. So you can append, after you've downloaded the list, you can append your own words to the list. So here is a simple function removing the stopwords from our text. So the first thing is that the tokenizer function, the tokenize function is provided also in the NLTK class. So it is going to tokenize your text for you. So basically it's going to split them into words. And after that has been split into words, here is the line of code to check. So basically, if the token is not in my stopword list, then it should add it into my token. Otherwise, it is going to remove it from my list of tokens. And after that, I am joining my list of tokens back into a text, and I'm returning this. So here is just a simple function to remove the stopwords from your text. Another important preprocessing step is the stemming and lemmatization. So basically, both of these steps are just common algorithms to reduce inflectional or related forms of a word into common base. So for example, in your text, you have different forms of word. An example is playing, and it still also means play. Plays also means play. Played also means play. So maybe either of these might not provide any extra additional information in your data. So you can decide to actually stem them. So stemming is that you put them into common roots you put them into the common roots from which is play. Another thing is, so basically stemming and lemmatization, they are achieving the same goal, but in the way in which they do them is just slightly different. In the case of lemmatization, so it returns basically the basic form of a word. So here is an example. Here we have am, are, is. Now all these words, they belong to the verb to be. So if you're lemmatizing, then it is going to return the word be. And a very, very powerful package to do this is this Spacey Python package, which this is the instruction on how to install them. So here is my function doing a simple stemming, and here is another function doing lemmatization of text. So here I am making use of the Spacey package, and I am trying to, so you can either decide, depending on your task, you can either decide to either stem or lemmatize your text. Now, I've put together all of this, what I've just described, into a Google Colab notebook. in which I'm going to be sharing. So here is the link. So you can go to this and you'll be able to access most of the functions. So basically, the only thing that you will probably need to fit in now is your keys. So if after you've gotten your Twitter developer account, you can create an app and generate the keys. And this will provide a guidance on how to start collecting Twitter data. So finally, before I conclude, I also just added an extra page of, so in case you don't want to collect tweets, the TweetPy package, you can also, there's also a web application that is provided by a university in the US to collect data, but you still need to get the API keys and things. So here is called the Social Feed Manager. This is the link. So basically, you provide, it's just a web interface to collect data. You provide the keys, you provide the keywords, and the data is going to be collected for you. But the only thing is that it is stored on your server. You have to make requests to download the data. Unlike when you're running your own Python scripts, you can just get it yourself. But the process is usually very, very quick and fast anyways. Now, also, there's also this toolkit, which might be used for social media. It's a toolkit. It has a lot of packages, libraries, and softwares that you can use to process Twitter data. I think, yes, so that is all from my own section. Thank you.